Valara had been taught to fear humans since she was a child. Every story, every lesson, every warning had been the same. Humans were killers. They hunted for sport. They destroyed everything they touched. If a human ever got close to you, you would not survive. Now. As her ship fell from the sky in a ball of fire and smoke, Valara knew those lessons were about to become her reality. The engine had failed without warning. One moment she was gliding through the upper atmosphere of the blue planet, gathering data for the Calith Dominion. The next moment, alarms screamed through the cockpit, and the ship began its deadly fall toward the ground below. Valara pulled hard on the controls, trying to slow her descent. It was no use. The ship was too damaged. All she could do was aim for an empty area and hope the crash did not kill her instantly. Through the smoke and flames, she saw a wide field of golden plants rushing up to meet her. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer to the old gods of her homeworld. The impact was brutal. The ship hit the ground and bounced once, twice, 3 times before coming to a stop in a deep trench of torn earth. Metal screamed as it bent and broke. Glass shattered. Something sharp cut across her arm, and violet blood sprayed across the broken controls. For a long moment, Valara did not move. She could not tell if she was alive or dead. Then the pain came, sharp and real, and she knew she had survived the crash. But surviving the crash meant nothing. She was on Earth now. The humans would find her. Valara forced herself to move. Every part of her body hurt. Her left arm was badly cut, and blood dripped steadily onto the floor of the ruined cockpit. Her breathing membrane, the organ that allowed her species to process different atmospheres, had been damaged in the impact. Each breath was difficult and painful. She found the emergency release and pushed it with her good hand. The hatch opened with a groan, and hot, dry air rushed into the ship. Valara pulled herself through the opening and fell onto the ground outside. The golden plants surrounded her. They were tall, reaching up to her chest, and they moved gently in the wind. The sky above was blue and wide, filled with white clouds. In any other situation, she might have found it beautiful, but beauty meant nothing when death was coming. Valara tried to stand. Her legs shook beneath her. She took one step, then another. She had to get away from the ship. The wreckage would attract attention. If she could hide somewhere, maybe she could survive long enough to send a distress signal. She made it 20 steps before her legs gave out. She fell face first into the dirt, the golden plants bending around her. The pain in her arm was growing worse. She was losing too much blood. This is how it ends, she thought. Alone on an alien world, bleeding to death in a field of strange plants. And if the blood loss did not kill her, the humans would. She thought of her mother back on Calith Prime. She thought of her younger brother, who had just started his training at the academy. She would never see them again. Valara closed her eyes. She was too weak to move, too weak to fight. All she could do was wait. Then she heard footsteps. They were heavy and slow, the sound of boots crushing plants and soil. Someone was coming toward her. Valara's heart raced with fear. She tried to push herself up, but her arms would not obey. She was helpless. The footsteps stopped beside her. She could feel the presence of something large standing over her. This was it. This was the moment she had been warned about her entire life. She forced her eyes open and looked up. The human stood against the bright sky, a dark shape blocking out the sun. It was a male. She could tell that much. He was tall and broad, with thick arms and a wide chest. His skin was brown from exposure to the sun, and his face was covered in short hair around the mouth and chin. He was looking down at her with an expression she could not read. In his hand he held a long tool made of metal and wood. A weapon, perhaps. Valara had seen images of human weapons in her training. They were primitive but deadly. This is it, she thought. He will kill me now. She closed her eyes again and waited for the blow to come, but it did not come. Instead, she heard the human make a sound. It was low and soft, almost like the concerned noise her mother used to make when Valara was sick as a child. "Hey there," the human said. His voice was deep but not harsh. "You're in pretty bad shape." Valara did not understand all the words, but she understood the tone. It was not aggressive. It was not threatening. It was almost gentle. She felt something touch her shoulder. The human's hand. She flinched, expecting pain, but the touch was light and careful. "Easy," the human said. "I'm not going to hurt you. Can you hear me? Do you understand?" Valara opened her eyes again. The human had knelt down beside her. Up close, she could see his face more clearly. His eyes were a pale color, like the sky. There were lines around them, marks of age and time spent under the sun. He was looking at her wound, at the violet blood staining the golden plants. "That's a lot of blood," he said. "We need to stop that bleeding. Can you move at all?" Valara tried to speak, but her voice came out as a weak croak. Her translator was damaged along with everything else. She managed a single word in the human's language, one she had learned during her training. "Help," the human nodded. "That's what I'm trying to do. My name's Jake Hadley. I've got a truck just over that hill. I'm going to carry you there, okay? It might hurt a little, but I'll be as gentle as I can." Before Valara could respond, the human put his arms beneath her and lifted her from the ground. He was strong, much stronger than she expected. He held her like she weighed nothing at all as he carried her through the field. Valara's mind struggled to understand what was happening. This was wrong. Everything she had been taught said this was wrong. Humans were supposed to be monsters. They were supposed to kill without mercy. They were not supposed to carry wounded aliens through fields and speak to them in gentle voices. The pain and blood loss were making it hard to think. Her vision was going dark around the edges. She looked up at the human's face as he walked. He was focused on the path ahead, moving quickly but carefully, trying not to jostle her too much. "Stay with me," he said, glancing down at her. "Don't close your eyes. We're almost there." Valara tried to obey, but her body was failing her. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was the human's face, lined with worry and concern for a creature he had never met before. Then everything went black. Valara woke to the smell of something cooking. It was a strange smell, nothing like the food on her homeworld. There was heat in it, and something sweet, and something else she could not name. She opened her eyes slowly. Her head hurt, and her arm throbbed with pain, but she was alive. That fact alone surprised her more than anything else. She was lying on something soft. A bed, she realized. A human bed. The room around her was small and simple. Wooden walls. A window with thin white fabric hanging over it. Sunlight came through the fabric, filling the room with a warm glow. Valara tried to sit up, but the movement sent a wave of dizziness through her. She fell back against the soft surface and took several deep breaths. Her breathing membrane was still damaged, and each breath took effort. She looked down at her arm. Someone had removed her torn uniform sleeve. The wound had been cleaned and wrapped in white fabric. The wrapping was tight but not too tight, done with care and skill. The human had done this. The human had treated her wound. Valara could not understand it. In all her training, in all the stories she had heard, humans were brutal creatures who enjoyed causing pain. They were supposed to torture their enemies, not bandage their wounds. She heard footsteps outside the room. Heavy boots on a wooden floor. The door opened, and the human walked in. He was carrying a tray with food and water on it. When he saw that she was awake, he smiled. It was a small smile, just a slight curve of his lips, but it changed his whole face. He looked less frightening when he smiled. "You're awake," he said. "Good. I was getting worried. You lost a lot of blood." Valara watched him carefully as he set the tray down on a small table beside the bed. She still did not trust him. She could not trust him. Everything she knew about humans told her this was a trap of some kind. "I brought you some food," the human said. "I don't know what your kind eats, so I kept it simple. Bread, eggs, some water. Do you eat this kind of stuff?" Valara looked at the food on the tray. She was hungry. She had not eaten since before the crash, and her body needed fuel to heal. But what if the food was poisoned? What if this was how humans killed their prey? The human seemed to read her thoughts. He picked up a piece of the bread and took a bite from it, chewing and swallowing in front of her. "See? Not poisoned. I know you probably don't trust me. That's okay. I wouldn't trust me either if I was in your position." He set the bread back down and pulled a wooden chair from the corner of the room. He sat down a few feet away from the bed, giving her space. "My name's Jake," he said. "Jake Hadley. I told you that before, but you might not remember. You were pretty out of it." Valara remembered. She remembered being carried through the golden field. She remembered his voice telling her to stay awake. "I'm a farmer," Jake continued. "I grow wheat. That's what those tall golden plants were in the field where I found you. Your ship made quite a mess of my crop, but I guess that's not really your fault." His voice was calm and steady, like he was talking about the weather instead of an alien spaceship crashing into his field. Valara did not know what to make of this human. "Can you talk?" Jake asked. "Do you understand what I'm saying?" Valara opened her mouth. Her translator was still damaged, but she had studied human languages during her training. She could speak some of the basic words. "I understand," she said slowly. Her voice was rough from lack of use. "Some words." "Not all," Jake nodded. "That's more than I expected. What's your name?" "Valara." "Valara," Jake repeated, testing the sound of it. "That's pretty. Where are you from, Valara?" "What planet?" "Keleth Prime. Far away. Many light years. And what were you doing flying over my farm?" Valara hesitated. She could not tell him the truth. She could not tell him that she was a scout gathering information for an invasion force. If he knew that, he would certainly kill her. "My ship broke," she said instead. "I crashed. I did not mean to come here." Jake studied her for a long moment. His pale eyes were hard to read. Then he shrugged. "Fair enough. I'm guessing you can't just call for a ride home, or you would have done that already. My communication device is broken." "Everything is broken." "Yeah, I figured. I looked at what's left of your ship. It's pretty much scrap metal now. Whatever you're going to do next, you're going to have to do it from here." Valara felt a cold fear in her chest. She was trapped on this planet. Trapped with the most dangerous species in the known galaxy. Even if this one human was not going to kill her, there were billions more out there who might. "You are not scared of me?" she asked. Jake laughed. It was a short, surprised sound. "Scared of you? You're about half my size and you can barely sit up. Why would I be scared of you? I am alien, different. Your people fear things that are different." "Some of them do," Jake admitted. "But I've never seen much point in fearing something just because it's different. You didn't ask to crash in my field. You're hurt and alone and far from home. The way I see it, you need help. And I was raised to help people who need it." Valara stared at him. This made no sense. None of it made sense. "Your people," she said carefully. "They say humans are killers, hunters, that you destroy everything." Jake's expression changed. The smile faded, and something sadder took its place. "We've done some terrible things," he said quietly. "I won't lie about that. Humans have hurt each other and hurt our world in ways I'm not proud of. But that's not all we are. Some of us try to be better. Some of us try to help. He stood up and moved toward the door. Get some rest, Valara. Eat, if you're hungry. The bathroom is across the hall if you need it. I'll be outside working if you need anything. He stopped at the door and looked back at her. I know you don't trust me. That's fine. But I promise you, as long as you're under my roof, no harm is going to come to you. You have my word. Then he left, closing the door gently behind him. Valara lay there for a long time, staring at the ceiling. Her whole world had been turned upside down. Everything she thought she knew about humans was being challenged by this one man and his simple kindness. Eventually, hunger won over fear. She reached for the tray and picked up the bread. She took a small bite, ready to spit it out if it tasted wrong. God, it did not taste wrong. It tasted good. Warm and soft and slightly sweet. She ate the rest of it slowly, then drank the water. Her body relaxed as the food settled in her stomach. The pain in her arm faded to a dull ache. Outside the window, she could hear sounds of work. Jake's voice, occasionally talking to himself or perhaps to an animal. The hum of machines. The rustle of wind through the wheat. For the first time since the crash, Valara felt something other than fear, that she was not sure what to call this feeling. It was strange and unfamiliar, but it felt almost like hope. Days passed and Valara grew stronger. Her wound healed faster than she expected, thanks to Jake's careful attention. Every morning, he changed the bandage and checked for signs of infection. Every evening, he brought her food and sat with her while she ate. At first, she barely spoke. She watched him with suspicious eyes, waiting for the moment when his kindness would reveal itself as a trap. That moment never came. Jake talked to her about his life. He told her about his farm, about the wheat he grew, and the animals he kept. He had chickens that gave eggs and a dog named Cooper who followed him everywhere. Cooper was a large brown animal with floppy ears and a constantly wagging tail. When the dog first saw Valara, he barked once, sniffed her carefully, and then licked her hand. Jake laughed and said that meant she was approved. Valara did not understand humans. She did not understand their strange animals or their stranger habits. But she found herself wanting to understand. Why do you live alone? She asked one evening as they sat on the porch outside Jake's house. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was beautiful in a way that surprised her. Jake shrugged. It's just how things worked out. I had a wife once a long time ago, Lisa. She got sick and died about 10 years back. Never found anyone else who felt right. So it's just me and Cooper now. I'm sorry for your loss. Thanks. It was hard at first. But life goes on. You find ways to keep moving. Valara looked out at the fields. The wheat swayed in the evening breeze, golden waves under the fading light. In the distance, she could see the dark scar where her ship had crashed. Jake had covered the wreckage with a large piece of fabric, hiding it from view of any passing aircraft. You hide my ship, she said. Why? Are you not supposed to tell your leaders about me? Jake was quiet for a moment. I probably should. There are people who would want to know about you. Government people. Military people. But I don't trust them to treat you right. They'd lock you up somewhere. Run tests on you. Ask you questions for years until they got bored. So you protect me from your own kind. I guess I do. Seems like the right thing. Valara turned to look at him. In the fading light, his face looked older, more tired. She realized that she had misjudged him at first. He was not simple. There was depth in him, years of experience and pain and hard-earned wisdom. You are different from what I expected, she said. Good different or bad different? I do not know yet. Just different. Jake smiled that small smile of his. Well, I'll take different. Different is better than what you were probably expecting. As the days continued, Valara began to help around the farm. Her arm healed enough that she could use it again, though it was still weak. She fed the chickens in the morning, throwing handfuls of grain while they clucked and pecked at her feet. She helped Jake repair a broken fence, holding boards in place while he hammered nails on. It was strange work, simple and physical. On Keleth Prime, she had trained with advanced technology and sophisticated systems. Here, everything was done by hand, with tools made of wood and metal, but there was something satisfying about it. Something real. When she finished the task, she could see the results of her labor. The chickens were fed. The fence was fixed. It was simple, but it mattered. "You're a quick learner," Jake said one afternoon as they worked in the vegetable garden behind the house. He was showing her how to pull weeds without damaging the plants. "Most people take longer to figure this stuff out. On my world, we are trained from young age. We learn fast because we must." "What kind of training?" Valara hesitated. She had avoided talking about her past, about her real reason for being on Earth. But Jake had been honest with her. It felt wrong to keep lying to him. "I was trained as a scout," she said carefully. "I fly to other worlds. I observe. I gather information. Information about what? About the people who live there. Their strengths. Their weaknesses." Jake stopped pulling weeds. He sat back on his heels and looked at her with those pale eyes. "Sounds like military work." "It is. So when you crashed here, you were doing a job. Gathering information about Earth. About humans." Valara could not meet his eyes. "Yes." The silence stretched between them. Valara waited for him to get angry, to demand that she leave, to become the violent human she had always been told to expect. Instead, he just sighed and went back to pulling weeds. "I figured it was something like that," he said. "Nobody sends scouts to planets they're not interested in. Your people want to know about us. Maybe they want to trade. Maybe they want to fight. Either way, they want to know what they're dealing with. You are not angry? What good would being angry do? You were doing what you were told. That doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a soldier." Valara felt something twist in her chest. He was being too kind, too understanding. He did not know the whole truth. "Jake," she said slowly, My people, they do not want to trade." Jake stopped again. He did not look at her this time. He just stared at the ground, at the dark soil and the green leaves of the vegetables. "I know," he said quietly. "I've been thinking about it since the day I found you. Why would anyone send scouts to a planet they just wanted to be friends with? They wouldn't. They'd send diplomats, ambassadors, not military scouts." He finally looked up at her. There was no anger in his eyes, but there was sadness. A deep, heavy sadness. "Your people are planning something bad, aren't they? Something to do with Earth." Valara wanted to lie. She wanted to tell him he was wrong, that her people meant no harm. But she could not. Not anymore. "The Keleth Dominion believes humans are a threat," she said. "They believe you will spread to other worlds and destroy everything in your path. They want to stop you before you become too powerful." "Stop us how?" Valara did not answer. She did not need to. Jake understood. He was quiet for a long time. The sun beat down on them, hot and bright. Somewhere in the distance, Cooper barked at something. "So you came here to help your people destroy mine," Jake said finally. "And I've been feeding you eggs and teaching you to pull weeds. I did not know it would be like this. I did not know humans could be kind. Everything I was taught said you were monsters. I was supposed to observe monsters, not make friends with them." Jake laughed. It was a sad laugh, bitter and tired. "Yeah, Well, I guess we both got more than we bargained for. He stood up and brushed dirt from his knees. Then he extended a hand to help Valara stand. Come on, he said. It's getting hot out here. Let's go inside and figure out what we're going to do about all this. Valara took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. His grip was warm and strong. Despite everything, despite the terrible truth she had just told him, he was still helping her. She did not deserve his kindness. She knew that now, but she was beginning to understand why humans were so feared across the galaxy. It was not their weapons or their violence that made them dangerous. It was this stubborn, impossible kindness that refused to die even when it should. That was the most dangerous thing of all. That night, Valara could not sleep. She lay in the small bed in Jake's spare room, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything she had learned and everything she had done. She had been sent to Earth as an enemy. She had come to study the weaknesses of a species marked for destruction. And instead, she had found kindness where she expected cruelty. She had found a friend where she expected a monster. What was she supposed to do now? The answer should have been simple. She was a soldier of the Caliph Dominion. Her duty was to her people, to her mission, to the chain of command that had given her orders. She should find a way to repair her communication device and report everything she had learned. But the thought of doing that made her feel sick. She thought of Jake, sleeping in the next room. She thought of his gentle hands bandaging her wound, his patient voice explaining how to care for chickens, his sad smile when he talked about his dead wife. He had shown her nothing but kindness since the moment he found her. He had protected her from his own people at great risk to himself. How could she repay that kindness by helping to destroy his world? She could not. The answer was that simple. She could not do it. But if she did not report, the Dominion would send others. They would wonder what happened to her. They would come looking for answers. And when they found this place, when they found Jake and his farm and his wheat fields, they would burn it all to ash. There was no good choice. Every path led to destruction. Valara finally fell asleep just before dawn, exhausted and troubled. Her dreams were dark and filled with fire. She woke to the sound of beeping. At first, she did not recognize it. Then understanding hit her like a physical blow. Her communicator, the emergency unit she kept strapped to her belt. It was receiving a signal. She grabbed the device with shaking hands. The screen was cracked and most of the functions were still broken. But somehow, the receiver had started working again. And someone was trying to contact her. She should wake Jake. She should tell him what was happening. But instead, she slipped out of the house into the cool morning air. The sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of gray and pink. She walked until she was far enough from the house that her voice would not carry. Then she answered the signal. The face that appeared on the small screen was familiar. High Marshal Torvax, commander of the Advanced Reconnaissance Fleet. He was an older Caliph with gray scales and cold yellow eyes. Valara had met him once before her mission, and his presence had made her uncomfortable even then. Scout Valara, Torvax said. His voice was flat and hard. You missed your scheduled report. We assumed you were dead. My ship crashed, High Marshal. My equipment was damaged. I have only now managed to restore communication. Crashed where? On the planet's surface, in an agricultural region. I have been observing the local inhabitants. Torvax leaned forward, his yellow eyes gleaming with interest. Excellent. Report your findings. What have you learned about the humans? Valara's mouth went dry. This was the moment. This was where she had to decide. The humans are more primitive than we expected, she heard herself say. Their technology is basic. Their weapons are crude. They would pose little threat to a Dominion invasion force. It was a lie. Or rather, it was only part of the truth. Human technology was less advanced than Caliph technology, yes. But that was not what made humans dangerous. What about their settlements? Torvax asked. Their population centers? Spread out. Difficult to defend. An orbital strike would eliminate the major cities within hours. Another partial truth. Another lie by omission. Torvax nodded slowly. Good. This confirms our projections. We will begin final preparations for the cleansing operation. I want you to provide coordinates for priority targets, starting with your current location. Valara's blood turned to ice in her veins. My current location, High Marshal? Standard procedure. We begin the bombardment at the edge of our mapped territory and work inward. Your location will be the first strike point. Mark the coordinates and transmit them immediately. The words echoed in her mind. First strike point. The farmhouse. Jake's fields. Cooper the dog. All of it vaporized in a flash of light from orbit. High Marshal, she said carefully. This location has minimal strategic value. It is just a single agricultural dwelling. Perhaps we should begin with the population centers instead. Are you questioning my orders, Scout? No, High Marshal. I am simply trying to maximize the efficiency of the operation. Torvax's eyes narrowed. The efficiency of the operation is not your concern. Your concern is following orders. Provide the coordinates. Valara looked back toward the farmhouse. Through the window, she could see movement. Jake was awake. He was probably making breakfast, starting his day the same way he had started every other day since she arrived. He did not know that death was circling overhead, waiting for the word. Scout Valara. The coordinates. Now. She turned back to the communicator. She looked at Torvax's cold face, his yellow eyes, his absolute certainty that what he was doing was right, and she made her choice. No, Torvax blinked. What did you say? I said no, High Marshal. I will not provide coordinates for bombardment. Not here. Not anywhere. You are refusing a direct order? Yes. Torvax's face twisted with anger. Do you understand what you are doing? This is treason. This is betrayal of everything you swore to uphold. You will be executed for this. Perhaps. But I will not help you destroy these people. These people are vermin. They are a plague that must be wiped out before they spread. No, Valara said, her voice stronger now. They are not. They are capable of kindness. They are capable of compassion. One of them saved my life when he had every reason to let me die. I will not repay that by helping you murder his world. Torvax stared at her through the screen. His anger seemed to fade, replaced by something that looked almost like pity. You have been contaminated, he said quietly. The humans have infected your mind. You are no longer capable of clear thinking. My thinking has never been clearer. Then you have made your choice, Scout. And you will live with the consequences. We will find Earth with or without your help. And when we do, we will burn it clean. Every city, every village, every farm. You have changed nothing. Maybe not, but I will not be the one who helped it happen. Torvax shook his head slowly. Goodbye, Scout. I hope your human friends are worth dying for. The signal cut off. The screen went dark. Valara stood in the early morning light, her whole body shaking. She had just signed her own death warrant. She had betrayed everything she had been raised to believe in. She had thrown away her career, her family, her entire future. And somehow, she felt lighter than she had in years. She walked back to the farmhouse. Jake was standing on the porch, a cup of coffee in his hand. He was watching her with a worried expression. You were talking to someone, he said. It was not a question. Yes. Your people? Yes. Jake took a long sip of his coffee. Bad news? Valara stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. She looked up at this strange human who had shown her kindness when he owed her nothing. "They wanted me to give them coordinates for an attack," she said. "They wanted to start the bombardment here. With your farm." Jake's face went pale, but he did not speak. "I told him no. I refused. I have committed treason against the Dominion." Silence stretched between them. Then Jake let out a long breath. "So what happens now?" "Now they will come anyway. They will find Earth eventually, with or without my help. I have only bought time." "How much time?" "I do not know. Months, maybe. A year at most." Jake nodded slowly. He looked out at his fields, at the golden wheat swaying in the morning breeze. His whole life was here. His memories, his work, everything he had built. "Well then," he said finally, "I guess we've got some work to do." "What do you mean?" Jake looked back at her, and for the first time since she had met him, she saw something fierce in his eyes. Something that reminded her of the stories she had heard about human warriors. "You said humans are a threat to the galaxy. You said that's why your people want to wipe us out." He set down his coffee cup and squared his shoulders. "Well, maybe it's time we proved them right. Maybe it's time we showed them what happens when you back humans into a corner." Valara stared at him. "You want to fight the Dominion?" "I want to survive. And I want to protect my home. If that means fighting, then yeah, I want to fight." He held out his hand to her, the same way he had done in the garden. "But I can't do it alone. I'm going to need help from someone who knows what we're up against. Someone who knows the enemy. Are you in?" Valara looked at his hand. She thought about everything she had lost, everything she had gained. Then she took his hand and shook it. "I am in." The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Jake made phone calls to people he knew, people he trusted, former military contacts, friends from his days before farming, people who would listen without asking too many questions. Valara watched it happen with growing amazement. She had expected humans to panic when they learned the truth. She had expected chaos, denial, fear. Instead, she saw something she had never encountered before. She saw humans organize. The first meeting happened in Jake's barn, 5 days after her conversation with Torvax. 12 people came, traveling from different parts of the country. Some were former soldiers like Jake, some were scientists. One was a retired pilot who still had connections to the Air Force. Jake introduced Valara to each of them. There were awkward moments. Some of them stared at her with fear in their eyes. Some looked like they wanted to run. But none of them did. They stayed, and they listened, and they asked questions. "So you're saying an alien fleet is coming to wipe us out?" said a woman named Grace Palmer, who had worked in military intelligence for 20 years. "And we have maybe a year to prepare." "That is correct," Valara said. "And you're here to help us?" "Yes." Grace exchanged looks with the others. Then she turned back to Valara with a hard expression. "Why? Why would you betray your own people to help us?" Valara thought about the question. She had been asking herself the same thing every day since her decision. "Because what my people are planning is wrong," she said finally. "Because I have seen what humans are capable of, and it is not what I was taught. And because Jake saved my life when he did not have to. I owe him a debt that I cannot repay with betrayal." Grace nodded slowly. "All right then. Let's get to work." That first meeting lasted 8 hours. Valara told them everything she knew about the Dominion fleet. Their weapons, their tactics, their weaknesses. She drew diagrams of their ships and explained how their shields worked. She described the hierarchy of command and the personalities of the officers she knew. The humans listened and took notes. They asked questions that showed they understood military strategy. They began to form plans. It was terrifying and inspiring at the same time. Over the next month, the group grew. Jake's contacts reached out to their contacts, who reached out to others. Word spread through careful channels. By the end of the second month, there were over 100 people involved. Scientists working on shield technology based on Valara's descriptions. Engineers trying to reverse engineer components from her crashed ship. Military planners developing defense strategies. And through it all, Jake was at the center of it. He was not a general or a scientist or a politician. He was just a farmer. But people listened to him. They trusted him. When arguments broke out, he calmed them. When people lost hope, he reminded them what they were fighting for. Valara began to understand why humans had spread so successfully across their planet. It was not because they were the strongest or the fastest or the smartest species. It was because they knew how to work together. They could take 100 different people with 100 different skills and turn them into something greater than the sum of their parts. It was beautiful to watch. One evening, 3 months after the crash, Valara sat with Jake on the porch of his farmhouse. The sun was setting again, painting the sky in familiar colors. Cooper lay at their feet, his tail wagging slowly. "Do you think we can win?" Jake asked quietly. Valara considered the question. "I do not know. The Dominion has resources you cannot match. Ships you cannot defeat. Technology you cannot counter. That's not really an answer." "No, it is not." She paused, watching the light fade from the sky. "But I have learned something in my time here, Jake. I have learned that humans do not give up. Even when the odds are impossible. Even when logic says there is no hope. You keep fighting. That's just stubbornness. Perhaps. But it is also strength. The Dominion has never faced an enemy like you. They expect you to surrender when you see their fleet. They expect fear and submission. Instead, they will find resistance." Jake smiled that small smile of his. "We're good at resistance. We've had plenty of practice. Yes, I am beginning to see that." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The stars were coming out now, scattered across the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, beyond the reach of human eyes, the Dominion fleet was gathering. Death was coming for this world, but this world was not ready to die. "Valara," Jake said after a while, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you regret it?" "Staying here, I mean. Choosing us over your own people." Valara thought about her home. Her mother. Her brother. She would probably never see them again. She had given up everything she knew for a species she had been taught to hate, and she did not regret it for a moment. "No," she said. "I do not regret it. When I crashed in your field, I expected to die. I expected cruelty and violence and pain. Instead, I found you. I found kindness. I found something worth protecting." She turned to look at him. In the dim light, she could see the lines on his face, the gray in his hair, the quiet strength in his eyes. "My people taught me that humans were monsters. They were wrong. You are not monsters, Jake. You are warriors. You are survivors. And you are friends." Jake reached over and put his hand on hers. His skin was warm and rough. "Well," he said, "you're one of us now. Whatever happens next, we face it together." "Together," Valara agreed. The weeks that followed brought more progress. A young scientist named Ben Carter figured out how to modify Earth's radar systems to detect Dominion ships at longer range. Grace Palmer worked with government contacts to quietly prepare emergency protocols. Former pilots began training on simulators based on Valara's descriptions of Dominion attack patterns. It was not an army. Not yet. But it was a beginning. And then, 4 months after the crash, Valara received another signal. It was not from the Dominion. The encryption was different, the frequency unusual. She almost ignored it, thinking it was some kind of trap. But something made her answer. The face on the screen was young and blue-scaled. with wide dark eyes that Valara recognized immediately. "Kira?" she whispered. Her younger brother looked at her with a mixture of fear and hope. "Valara, you are alive. How did you find me? How are you contacting me?" "I built a hidden transmitter. It took months. When you were declared a traitor, I did not believe it. I had to know the truth." Valara felt tears forming in her eyes. "The truth is complicated, Kira. I did refuse my orders. I did commit treason. Why? Because our leaders are wrong about humans. Everything we were taught is wrong. They are not monsters, Kira. They are people. Good people who deserve to live." Kira was silent for a long moment. Then he leaned closer to the screen. "I am not the only one who questions the Dominion's plans," he said quietly. "There are others. Young soldiers who have doubts. Scientists who think the genocide is wrong. We have been meeting in secret, trying to find a way to stop this." Valara's heart pounded in her chest. "How many? Dozens, maybe more. We need guidance. We need someone to show us what to do. I can help. I can teach you what I have learned here. But Kira, if you are caught, I know the risks. But some things are worth dying for." He paused, and a small smile crossed his face. "I think that is something the humans taught you." Valara laughed through her tears. Yes, it is." She ended the call with a promise to contact him again soon. When she told Jake what had happened, his face lit up with something that looked almost like joy. "So we're not alone," he said. "It seems not. There are allies in the Dominion. Not many, but some. Then we have a chance. A small one." Jake grinned. "Small chances are the only kind worth fighting for." Later that night, Valara stood alone under the stars. The wheat fields stretched out around her, silver under the moonlight. Cooper sat beside her, his warm body pressed against her leg. She thought about the future, about the war that was coming, about the people she had met and the choices she had made. She had come to Earth expecting death. She had found something completely different. She had found hope, and that hope was growing, spreading, building into something that even the Dominion could not ignore. Humans and Keleth working together. Two species reaching across the void to save each other from destruction. Maybe they would fail. Maybe the Dominion was too strong. Maybe all of this was for nothing. But as Valara stood under the stars on a human world she had learned to love, she knew one thing for certain. They would not go down without a fight. And sometimes that was enough.